Heather, can you hear us?
Yes.
We had quite a bit of echo.
Tested.
Yeah, it seems better now.
All good.
It's better now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we? Calling to order the special meeting of the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners for this Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. It is approximately 22 minutes after 6, and we are beginning our first in a series of budget session meetings. And so as an introduction and general overview of the agenda, I'll pass you to Heather Meacham, our finance director.
Hi. I sent out, or I had Carrie send out late sort of budget over schedule. I don't know if I can share that. Let's see.
I can.
I got it. This is very similar to sort of the schedule that we followed last year, or I should say earlier this year for the current budget. We're having our budget scoping session number 1. I don't have a number 2 scheduled as of right now. I think we only did one during the past budget session. If we needed a second one, we could, always schedule a second one. Then I'm going to be working on getting forms out to the department heads for their capital project, expectations for the upcoming year, and then their O&M expectations. And then obviously, and then in February, we will be having, individual department head meetings to discuss the budgets that they've turned in. And then we would do the a sort of department head budget retreat, which is essentially just a meeting at the office with everybody to go over the budget. And then we would be doing a Board of Commissioners budget retreat, and then still hoping to have it adopted by the last meeting in May, because that still gives us time in June to get it adopted if there are any additional questions or we have more discussion about it. So that's the sort of tentative schedule. It's the thing obviously that we will need to be, and we'll probably talk about it at a future meeting, is to sort of nail down the date of the Board of Commissioners budget retreat. Tonight we just wanted to talk about I'm going to stop sharing that. Tonight we were just going to talk about sort of the Board of Commissioner goals for the upcoming budget year. So that gives department heads an idea of sort of, if there's something specific that you're wanting a specific department to focus on. We want to know what your priorities are. If there's anything that's, maybe that we have that you thought was going to get addressed this year that maybe hasn't been, or, that you want to do. And then any new ideas. And these don't have to be something that's getting accomplished, in 1 year, but, we want to make sure that we are focusing, as much as we can on the priorities of the board. Obviously, a lot of the budget is a sort of standard, we have obviously a lot of our O&M, and we have a lot of stuff that is the same, every year, and that continues to grow. But if there are obviously positions that you think that we need to be focusing on, either adding, or if there are, capital purchases that you think that we need to be focusing on, stuff like that, that's helpful for department heads to know, what the priorities of the board are. So then I'll sort of open it up for discussion and any questions and.
Questions from department heads?
No,
Or
this is really questions from you,
just for the
from the
board?
board. Yeah,
Okay.
questions from the board and the priorities of the board. Department heads are here on the call in case you have questions for them, you know,
Okay.
regarding anything. But really, this is more for us to hear from the board. Yep.
I would personally like for the funds for board training, board travel, and cell phone reimbursements to be added to the elected officials' administrative line items. When we came online last year in December, we were told that there weren't sufficient funds to do training for new commissioners. I had already been trained in prior years on new mayor's school, but it was, I thought it was a real need for there to be sufficient funds for training, travel, and cell phones.
Okay.
I
And we do have some funds available for training. I'll have to double check. In the current year, we do have, I mean, we had some funds scheduled for board training. It's just whether or not it was enough to, so it depends on what it was. But I can look into that and get back to you on what we currently have available in this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, off the top of my head, it's not so much that I have questions accumulated as I have concerns and requests that I'd like to articulate and see if other commissioners feel similarly. I think I'm going to prioritize a capital improvement plan that would really rank very high on continued I&I investments to increase sewer capacity, replacement of old 2-inch lines. I know that's a priority of Commissioner Farrell's, and improvement of flow and pressure. Now, I know that I'm so sorry, my brain's not working this well this evening. The neighborhood on the top of the hill near the drinking water plant. That the problem with the 2-inch water lines there is
Hearn Road.
Yes, Hearn Road is very much complicated by the individual houses and their positions of the meters and a lot of complexities that I'm not going to be able to articulate or remember precisely. My point is that I understand there's a lot of complexity there. I guess I'd just like to see that I&I in particular and replacement of old 2-inch lines queued up as a set of options perhaps in the budget. Just because we're pursuing a merger with Sanford, we should not relent in our efforts to take care of what we're responsible for, is my point.
Mhm.
Especially if it can give us increased sewer capacity. I have a list of things, so,
Go ahead.
but if others want to chime in on that point.
Oh, I'll agree.
I agree.
We do. Yes, we do need to look at that more. We can continue to do that. That's a great idea. Thank you.
The strategic plan process, I don't recall where that is in the budget, whether or not Mr. Kennedy had firmly budgeted that before his departure. Heather, maybe that is a question for you.
I I do not remember that we have that currently budgeted in this fiscal year. I can double check, but that it does not. I remember obviously discussing it and but I just can't. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't recall that that it is in fact budgeted. But I will double check and I will get back to you.
Thank you. And kind of vying for third place is I'm weighing two things that I feel very strongly about. And one is bringing on a grant writer on staff. It was first formally suggested in fall of 2020. We'd been talking about it before that. Yes, Triangle J Council of Governments does provide us with some assistance and support, but I think there's just nothing equal to having a person on staff who works every day in the town of Pittsboro and understands the needs deeply and profoundly, to get that fire in the belly to pursue those projects, those multiple grant opportunities. And the funds are abundant right now. And I think that not having that in-house doesn't give us the same kind of drive and determination to go seize those funds. And it also requires a lot of creativity. I know it's not a done deal when you hire a grant writer, but equally, I'm hopeful that we can continue planning. Probably, again, I think this is a capital improvement plan item in 2025 or later. I'm just curious how much funding this town can allocate to a Highway 87 modernization and at what point. We have heard time and time again, our friends and partners with the Chatham Park investors say that in the near future, y'all are going to have more revenues than you know what to do with. Well, I don't see it happening. I think it will happen one day, but I still don't think that it's going to be enough to take care of what we've got to take care of. And that particular project is needed. And just because we got DOT's apparent agreement to move 15501 over to Highway 87 does not mean that it's not still needed. The road needs to be modernized, it needs to be widened, and we need a complete street for at least a certain section of Highway 87. Bike or multi-use path and sidewalk. So I guess that's 5 items. I remain concerned about citizen complaints describing and characterizing our water and sewer billing policies as punitive, disequitable, and regressive. From a policy perspective, as one elected member, I would say that our policies should not, the goal of our policies should not be punishment, but keeping the enterprise afloat while providing a basic human necessity. And to the extent that there may be wealthy individuals who are manipulating the situation to extend, give themselves basically a line of credit on paying their water bill, I hope that we can find ways specific to those circumstances to address that without literally punishing people who, in some cases, are living hand to mouth and cannot afford a disconnect fee and an expensive reconnect fee, or I'm not being very articulate right now, but what I wonder about is whether or not we can find enticements to people to have their payments automated I think, Heather, that we already have a number of options. I know that I pay our family's water bill automatically. I don't have to think about it. I know a lot of people aren't able to be in that situation. But for those who are able, but choose to manipulate us as a line of credit by paying us late repeatedly, again, rather than a punishment, maybe we can entice them with a temporary waiver of any associated fees. I think that for credit card transactions, there is a fee. Is that right?
Yes, we charge a $2 fee. Yeah,
But if there's a direct bank debit set up, that there's no fee for either party. Is that true?
correct. Right. We don't assess a fee. I can't speak on the bank behalf, but we don't assess a fee for a bank
Yeah.
draft.
Well, I'd like to encourage you and staff, perhaps our customer service person, to think creatively and think outside the box about how we can find ways to incentivize people for a temporary period to try and get them out of the habit of paying late, if indeed there are people who pay late habitually without in my opinion, justifiable cause of actual funds shortage.
Yes, yeah, and just so you know, this month we only cut off I think it was like 27 people. I mean, it was not a large amount that were cut off. Quite a few of those are habitual. And I mean, we do try to work with everybody as much as possible to give them options. And we fortunately right now, the county still has a pool. I don't know how long it's going to last for, but they have a pool of those federal funds still that people can apply to. And we strongly encourage customers to do that. They have to do that themselves. We cannot do it for them, but they can apply. And we have received quite quite an amount for our customers through that program. So that has helped, several of our customers, keep from getting cut off and prevent some of those fees. So.
Heather, what happens if a family gets their water cut off and then they reach out and say, we need water, we don't have money? Like, can you walk us through what happens to those people?
Right. So we explore, we try to ask them questions without being, so it's walking that line of not wanting to obviously overstep our bounds in terms of asking personal questions that they might not, obviously, that they might get offended, that we're asking those questions. But we try to, we try to provide them with the resources that we have, which are the county, the Red Cross. There are some other churches in town that will sometimes sponsor households that don't have the income requirements necessarily that the county program has. So we try to reach out to them and provide them with that and have them contact them. And once we get confirmation that they have gotten a sponsorship, then we can turn their water back on. We also will, depending on the circumstances, we will offer up, doing a payment plan with us, because it might be, if it's a temporary, sort of situation, or if they, like we have some customers that, they either had a large bill, like abnormally large bill, or because of a leak, and we adjust off some of that leak, but we can't adjust the whole amount off. So, we try to work with them, and we do have payment plan options.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to take a pause. I've got 6 or 7 more, but I'm going to pause and let others step up.
Pause for me.
Well, back to the situation with the water bills. Sometimes we forget, like me, I forget, unfortunately. But have you ever considered like people paying monthly monthly average the same amount every month.
Hmm.
And then eventually, you see what I mean? Like an average every
Right.
month. And
To get
Yeah,
yeah, sort of like
Yeah.
what Duke offers.
I don't, I'd have to look into whether our software system provides like an option for that, where it would be easy for us to, you know, check a box sort of for that, and that it would somehow account for that, you know, because otherwise it would be a lot of manual, you know, work for us. But I can look into whether that's an option through our software system. And then it's, you know, obviously that would then be a discussion with the board about whether that's, you know, an option that you want to have, and then how you would address, you know, if they, so say they were paying, you know, $60 a month, but then their usage went up or something, you know what I mean? There would have to be a,
Yeah.
you know, we'd have to figure out that process.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I feel like when we talked about this last year, we said that nobody's water really gets shut off if they come and have a conversation with us.
I think
But I
that,
also think right when you first walk in, it says no partial payments will be accepted. So I
Yes,
feel
we
like
do
maybe
need
that
to
sign
change.
should be popped off the wall.
Yes, we do need to change that signage because we have that same sign as you drive up to the drive up.
Mhm.
And that's one of my things that I want to get the signs around town hall there updated, because they are faded, or you know, they need to be repainted and redone. And we need to remove that. Yeah, because we will take any payment anytime.
Yeah,
okay.
I've had 2 people in the last year throw that sign at me,
Mhm.
and I've just
Okay.
walk in and talk to people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I really don't have a concern about the wastewater treatment plant, but I just need to know that things are going well there. If there's any things that we need to look at the wastewater treatment facility, because even though there's a possibility of merging with Sanford, we still need to keep that in mind, what type of updates we need to do to the wastewater treatment plant and things such as that. And also, in reference to the downtown, I would like to see more, if there would be able to be more funds for downtown rehabilitation, if at all possible. So that we can just make it a little brighter. Maybe do some sandblasting. And I don't know what that would cost, but I would like to see like that as well.
Sorry, Commissioner Bonnets, do you mean like the grants, like the facade grants, or something different than that?
Well, in addition to the facade grant, to
Okay.
just, yes, to give the storefront of the buildings a better look, if at all possible, a brighter look. And maybe that could be similar to the facade grant program, possibly another type of program that they could apply for.
Shifting to utilities, what happens if you've both sort of mentioned it, that we would be remiss if we didn't keep putting money in for maintenance. What happens if the deal happens the deal with Sanford, the utility merger happens halfway through this year? What happens to dollars that we have allocated towards maintenance or
Well,
utilities?
I think Kyle is among us all probably pushing the hardest on this, and what he's envisioned is that the deal starts in 2024. And I think we're all mindful of the fact that we now are in the, I would say, privileged position that we are a distressed utility.
Mhm.
And so we're getting grant funds and we're getting other preferential treatment. And I just hope that staff can lay that out very clearly about how we think that through strategically with regard to the process of merger, to maximize those opportunities. And I think you've heard us say that before, so it's nothing new, right? So.
Sure. I mean, as far as your specific question about what happens with the budget, I don't know if we approach that point of talking about that detail. But certainly something to put on our list of
Questions?
Yeah, I mean, one of the, if this continues to look, promising, one of the next steps is going to be to establish kind of our must-have, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, among those might be things like that.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna guess off the top of my head that the agreement would probably be tidier if it did start with a fiscal year. But I don't know.
Yes, I would agree, that it would be tidier. And I think I would assume that, the city of Sanford would also agree with that, that it would be the easiest to start, on a fiscal year. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, that hasn't, been a point that's been discussed yet. And I think, we'll see what, the data that we get on the 13th, and then, proceed from there. So.
By chance, Heather, do we know, are all local governments operating on fiscal year, or could they be on a calendar year or a different fiscal year?
No, as far as I'm aware, we're required by statute to be on a fiscal year.
Okay, I
So-
kind of thought that, so thank you.
Yeah.
for confirming that.
One of the things that has been talked about for a number of years are downtown signs and downtown sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
would stress those two. We really need to make it a more welcoming and easy to get around location.
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yes, absolutely. And I want to go back through and need to go back through the work plan from Teresa Thompson and the downtown project to clarify this, but yeah, just the overall project of enhancing especially the back sides of the buildings in those first two blocks of Hillsborough Street is a very high priority, I think. And it would be a very, very ambitious undertaking. One more reason why I would think it'd be beneficial for us to have a grant writer on staff. Not that Teresa Thompson shouldn't already be working on that, and she probably is, but yeah, I imagine there's probably a need for engineering and planning and maybe even facilitation to get all the various property owners together and the leaseholders and come to agreements and figure out what that's going to look like. She seems very good with dealing with multiple stakeholders and things like that.
Go ahead, John. You had some more.
Okay.
Keep going. I'm into it.
So in my first year in this elected role, I took a training with an organization called Chatham Organizing for Racial Equity, CORE. And Ms. Pamela, I think that you also pursued training with them, and
Right.
I believe
Mhm.
Commissioner
And actually, I'm
Fiocco
still
did,
on it,
and
too.
Mhm.
Mayor Cindy Perry did.
Mhm.
And I would very much like for us to consider, perhaps it's in our board budget, putting a priority on that. Not just for us as a board, but for all of the staff who choose to attend and learn about race, racism, racial equity, and reconciling history. So I don't know what more to say about that, but CORE still is in existence
Yes, it
and they
is.
are still offering that training.
Mhm.
So,
I think that would be good for anyone who would like to take it. Actually, Chief Shorty took it also. He was in there with me.
yeah,
Yes. So anyone that would be interested, hopefully we could offer staff enhancement and things like that, staff training, ways of helping our staff. That would be good.
It wasn't an inexpensive thing, as I recall. It was about $200.
Mhm.
mhm.
But I think that, you know, extending to committees and extending to the planning board and it just would help us to become more of a community, I think.
Mhm.
Mhm. I have a bullet item here on transparency. And this may already have gotten taken care of itself, or maybe it's just as simple as airing this as a request, but how do we get board documents published to the public as soon as the board gets them? And Carrie, when I first made that note, we didn't have you as town clerk. So maybe that doesn't even need to be addressed right now, but maybe it just helps that you've heard that's a priority.
And we didn't have Colby
That's right. Yeah.
to help us spread the word about new initiatives and things like that.
That's
So
right. Yeah, I started taking these notes 6 months ago. So I'm also very interested, continue to be interested in us pursuing every opportunity we can to save money while we save energy and reducing our pollution profile. And one way we can do that is through fleet electrification. But there's other alternative fuels that also make sense that help us reduce our emissions. I think the fact that we've got the second largest economic development project in the state to our south at the VinFast project says that's where the future is going, and we need to modernize. And things are moving so quickly and changing so rapidly that I would not want us to miss out on opportunities. And it's not that I want us to go leaping into technologies that are untested, because I think that's something that some local governments do. Rather, I would like us to have a very intentional process of planning for that. And I think that started with Mr. Kennedy with an inventory of the fleet and the wheeled equipment. And I was very encouraged at that. And I don't think that we had one prior to his developing that Excel spreadsheet. And this is getting a bit into town manager business and outside of budget, but the general statement that I would like to make is that any situation where we can save money with modern technology that may be higher capital costs, but has a lower cost of operation, I think we should consider it. And the best example right now is the Ford F-150 Lightning pickup truck that is actually cheaper than the gasoline equivalent. The way that works is the Ford F-150 Lightning electric pickup truck is rated at 426 horsepower. It is an all-wheel drive vehicle, which is effectively a four-wheel drive vehicle. So in order to spec out a comparable gasoline F-150, you have to go to the four-wheel drive version and the V8 up from the V6 standard. Altogether, that means you got to pay $5,800 more for the gasoline equivalent to reach a mere 400 horsepower. You still don't get 426 horsepower. The electric, again, is 426 horsepower. The gas version is only 400, but it's the closest you can get in the comparable. So there's not a lot of examples like that. The Chevy Bolt is also cost competitive with the gasoline equivalent. But those two examples make it very clear that we are on our way to what's called price parity. And that's where electric vehicles are cheaper or the same price or cheaper than gasoline equivalent. And those F-150 Lightning Pros, with the Pro is the designation for that vehicle that's designed for municipal fleets in particular. The wait list is miles long, but it only costs us $100 to get on the wait list. And I don't even know that it does cost us that if we're using the government contracts. I think that the local fleet sales people, the government sales and corporate sales people just need to hear from us. I would suggest that with a very clear analysis that any F-150 purchase from here on out or the equivalent vehicle, it's probably going to be cheaper to buy that fleet style F-150 Lightning Pro. And that's the perfect example where I think, again, any situation where we can save money while reducing pollution emissions, we should consider it. So enough said on that. Another item I would very much like us to do in our budget statement is expanded tree maintenance and budget for plantings, new tree plantings. Mr. Kennedy did get a good serious start on this, as I recall, with the current budget. I think there's going to be a need for that along Hillsborough Street once that's widened, and I think that should be opened in 2025 or 26. The new multi-use path and sidewalk along Hillsborough
Hope
Street.
so.
Hope so. Is that your recollection?
I believe so.
Yeah. And there is nothing in the DOT budget for street trees at that point. They are going to take out some trees. But street trees help slow traffic in addition to making the community a nicer, more pleasant place. And Chatham Park sure is putting in a lot of street trees. And so we need to attend to those kinds of things. Mr. Kennedy also very much wanted us to pursue Tree City USA designation. That was why he got that budget in place. And so that's something I can support, have supported, and will continue to support. In a similar vein, I'm going to mention this in the context of the budget, but I don't think there's any place for it in our current budget. I just would like staff to be aware that there is a designation for pollinator friendly status. And maybe that goes into the sustainability policies that we're changing in our UDO. I forget what the language is on that. Citizen Academy was written down. Thank you. Colby. Thanks so much. And I've reached the bottom of my list. So thank you very much for letting me share these thoughts and concerns.
Well, thank you. I mean, I know that staff appreciates hearing from, the board on these things, so that it helps us know what concerns you have, and what concerns you're hearing, from the public as well, so. Does anybody have anything else that they, that's sort of top of the mind?
Well, I won't say it's the top of the mind, but I'm always concerned with the planning department and our engineering, making sure that that is going along smoothly. And if there's things that they need from us, to let us know. But I always is concerned about engineering. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so thanks. We appreciate that gesture. I mean, we do have some substantial resource needs that I'll be talking about in the budget process with Heather and the key manager. We see the projects that are underway, the projects that are coming. Yeah, we will be bringing forward some considerations for resources for engineering.
Okay, all right, thank you. And the same thing with the planning department
I'm glad you
as
mentioned.
well.
Mhm.
Since we don't have, go ahead.
That's right.
Right now, of course, we have an interim planning director. So we definitely need to focus on things in the planning department as well.
Mhm. And I think I've heard staff suggest that ought to be the one of the top priorities of the new manager. And I think that's exactly right.
Yes.
And yeah, and I, for one, would be open to budget expenditure to recruit that person. I think it's such a critical role.
It is very
Agreed.
critical.
I'll just step in and say thank you for that concern. That really means a lot to all of us. And yes, acting in or being here in an acting position, I intend to stay afterwards, but I think right now for our budget, we'll talk with Heather and have some more internal conversations prior to bringing some potential requests to you all. We have some ideas, but again, just being in the acting, we don't necessarily want to overstep a future director.
All right, thank you.
Janie, thank you for speaking up. And yes, please do let us know what needs there may be in terms of budget. And with my attention drawn to the screen, I'm now seeing Katie Keller is present virtually. Glad to see you. And I'm also reminded that something I didn't mention from my list is the bike and pedestrian master plan. And I don't know that that's directly in your purview, but I feel like there's kind of an overlap there, Katie, with your work on greenways. But just for you and for staff in general, one of the other reasons why I'd like us to have some serious thought and to put into the capital improvement plan is to actually start scheduling sidewalk projects, bike and pedestrian projects, greenway projects. And we've got such a wonderful parks master plan and bike ped master plan. I think that the projects are there and the lists are there. We just need to have them put in our budget.
Yes, thank you.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, we can't hear you, Katie. We heard you briefly, but you faded out. It was strange. Maybe you're muted.
Yeah, she's
She's muted.
We can just barely hear you. Yeah,
No.
mic isn't working. Okay, well. We look forward to hearing more from you later.
Any further ideas for Heather? That may be our Christmas wish list, Heather.
It's a good one. Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's good for us to hear this. And it gives us obviously lots of things to go back on, back and think about and plan, and talk about. So, I will, look into whether we had the strategic plan project, in this year's budget. I will confirm that. And then I will also look into whether our, software system will allow us to do, offer equal utility payments as an option. And I will get back to you on that as well. That may not happen as quick because unfortunately, our software provider is not always the best at getting us answers. So if it's not something that I can easily, see in the system. And then I just wanted to let you know that on the meeting on the 12th, we're going to have an amendment to the audit contract. And the reason for that is that we have had a delay in submitting the audit. And that has been because I was having issues with the software system in tracking our project, our capital project funds. And so it's taken me longer to get the auditors some information. And then I'm in the process of reviewing the financials they have put together. And so we will hopefully be submitting it. My plan is to submit it either next week or, right before Christmas. The audit contract amendment does have a date in January as our deadline, but that's just in case anything else pops up. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Thank you.
And also, Heather, if you will check on those training funds for elected officials. Thank
Yes, I will do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything else that the board needs to bring to the budget attention?
Not at the moment.
You've given us some ideas, Heather, about your budget schedule, and we've looked at the board's opinion of new budget requests. So are we at a point where we need final comments and next steps?
Yes. Yep. So, I mean, I think the next steps are just for, at least from my perspective for budget, is that, we will talk about this at probably a department head meeting, and then I will be giving the department heads, their budgets, and then be waiting to see what they put in them.
Very good. It does occur to me that communication is perhaps one of the very best ways in which we can all operate together during this budget process. And I think to myself that there's oftentimes when, as a small town, we feel like we ought to be able to communicate well. But I would just encourage us all to keep those avenues open.
Yes.
Not just with our board, but there are ideas that can cross-pollinate with the county board and with agriculture, and no pun intended, but it's something that I feel very strongly about. So let us all take a moment to think about how we can enhance those communication issues as we go through this next budget process.
Mayor Perry, I very much appreciate you mentioning that, and I'll emphasize that, you know, much of, well, all of these thoughts were what I developed over the course of just past few months. And so the thing that I, in the past, have most looked forward to is hearing from each of the individual department heads what their concerns and budget priorities are. So I very much look forward to that. That's the communication that I'm hungry for right now.
Great.
So.
All right. Anything else, Heather?
I don't have anything else at this time, no.
Excellent. All right. I believe we're in line for adjournment.
Yeah, so moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bonnets,
Seconded.
seconded by Commissioner Bose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Heather.
Yes, thank you all.
Enjoyed,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
enjoyed our discussion this evening.